Welcome to Flap Canada's annual bird layout event. My name is Brendan Samuels and I'm the Bird Safe Building Coordinator with Flap. It is bittersweet for us to be here today with so many familiar faces to recognize the profound loss of the birds that you see before you. On behalf of Flap Canada, I want to acknowledge that our organization is situated on the traditional territory of many First Nations, including Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples. The communities that we work in are home to many First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples. The City of Toronto, where Flap's office is based, is covered by Treaty 13 that was signed with the Mississaugas of the Credit and the Williams Treaties that were signed with multiple Mississaugas and Chippewa bands. We recognize that many of the birds Flap strives to protect in the built environment are native species and hold cultural and spiritual significance to Indigenous peoples who have relationships with these animals dating back to time immemorial. The causes of bird collisions and resulting losses of avian life are fundamentally linked to our building developments in the environment covered by the treaties. In carrying out its work, Flap aims to address these injustices through advocacy, education, and sharing of solutions while respecting the needs and legal rights of Indigenous peoples and First Nations. We will begin today's program by honoring the loss of these birds through a moment of silent reflection. We are gathered here to share in our collective grief and to renew our commitment to reducing the violence being inflicted on bird populations through collisions with glass. Please take a moment to look inward and acknowledge the feelings that come with being in this space together with these birds whose songs can no longer be heard. We are fortunate to be joined today by representatives of a number of groups and partners of Flap Canada. It's my great pleasure to invite Andrés Jiménez here from Ontario Nature to say a few words. Here you can sit.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Brandon, for starting us the good way and for sharing such emotional yet scientific words about what is happening here today. Thank you, Michael, and thank you, Paloma, for being such good friends to me since I got here 10 winters ago. Yes, I do counting winters. And I'm Andrés Jiménez, the Executive Director for Ontario Nature. For those of you that are not familiar with Ontario Nature, we are a 95-year-old charity where Ontarians come to connect, learn, and mobilize for the conservation of nature. We have 153 groups that are part of our nature network and 10,000 members. When I was coming here today, I asked my wife if she wanted to come, and she said that she couldn't. She said that she saw it once in the ROM and that she could not do it again. And she said, I gotta wonder, how did they make that a hopeful event? And I think I found my answer today. And it's not meant to be hopeful, at least for me. But I come from where those oven birds are, Costa Rica. And I have always seen, possibly because I come from that country, as a connector between that mass over there called South America and that one over there called North America. And this is hopeful because you people are here. It's hopeful because I get to mourn with you out of all these birds, and I don't do it alone. And it is hopeful because of the connections and relationships that are formed that will allow us to move forward on, as Brandon so suitably put it, reducing the violence against these birds. And so I just want to thank you all for the work you do. I also was speaking with one of Flap volunteers yesterday, and she said, I'm not going to go there, but I send my birds, all of them. And I was like, wow, so much dedication. And I have always been inspired about the work that Flap does, because I strongly believe that without Flap, we wouldn't be here today. And this issue would not be what it is today, and it would not progress to the point where we are today. And it is through the work of volunteers and so many people. So I want to thank everyone for the opportunity to say a few words, and I want to thank you all for your work. Keep it up. There's no other way but keeping it up. Thank you.
I'm going to now hand it over to Michael Mesure, Flap Canada's Executive Director.
I want to start out, and Andrés already sort of addressed this, but this wouldn't be happening without the work of our volunteers. And I'm going to ask a show of hands. How many people actually volunteer on the street rescue efforts in this room? This happens to me. I'm grateful. I'm always taken by this. It serves as a painful reminder of what we're dealing with and how unnecessary it is. And I just hope we can get to the point where we don't have to see this anymore. Give me a second. This always happens to me. I apologize. Let me get my focus here. Ultimately, if you've seen our layouts in the past, it's a series of circles, and every year we struggle to come up with something different to try and attach itself to a theme. And this year we decided to go with Birds Know No Borders, combined with the value of partnerships. And Andrés is one of those partners. There's many partners in this room today. The bottom line is FLAP could not exist without partnerships. And the more partnerships we have, the greater chance we have at resolving this problem. And under this country's current political climate, and well, let's face it, south border, we're struggling with a lot of politics making this more difficult. We've now had our regions, cities now stripped of their powers to be able to enforce their own green standards. This is something that FLAP's worked on since the early 2000s, got some really strong guidelines and standards in place, and now that's been taken away. And we can't allow this to continue. We also need to get Canada back on the map as a leader in this space. FLAP started out as a leader. The US has now stepped above and beyond Canada because of all these setbacks being put in place by our current government. So our hope is we can continue to work toward changing that, getting Canada back on track, getting our local regions the powers back to be able to do the work that they were doing before this was taken away. So trying to come up with a theme, Brendan came up with, hey, why don't we do a map of the continents of North and South America to try and suggest that Birds Know No Borders. And we kind of, pardon the pun, we kind of won this one. I just hope we can take the opportunity afterwards to chat with each other and talk about how we can continue our partnerships to be able to achieve the work that we're doing. So with that, I'll say thank you again and pass this over to you, Ben.
I am honored to be inviting up Paul Groleau from Feather Friendly, our host for today's events, to say a few words. Yes, thanks for everyone who came. I would like the volunteers to raise their hands again. If it wasn't for FLAP and it wasn't for you people, volunteering your efforts and time, we would probably not be a business. Michael and Paloma started this way back when, how many years ago now?
1993.
So if it wasn't for them starting this and raising the awareness, we wouldn't have legislation across North America. And we are starting to see legislation worldwide. I was just part of a committee that developed a standard for Dubai that's just being released. So we're now starting to see this as an international issue. We do know the numbers of birds that are killed per year are massive. 2 studies published in 2024 show the numbers at approximately 1.28 billion, and that's with a B, are killed per year just in the USA. And we do know that there's documented strikes in 100 countries, affecting well over 2,000 species of birds. This is alarming. If it wasn't for the people in this room, we wouldn't be addressing this issue. I am a firm believer it takes a village. We experience a lot of stuff, and I say we, Feather Friendly, when we do a project like McCormick Place. We got a lot of fanfare, a lot of publicity. But we're stepping on the shoulders of all the people that raised the awareness.
We're in a very unique position to be a part of the solution. And we're grateful for that. We're grateful to you, Michael, and to Flap, and to Paloma, and Brendan, and everyone who supports us. We have a tagline in our boardroom that talks about education, conservation, and a proven solution. It's about having the conversation. It's about events like this that are so important to bring awareness. This is approximately 3,000 birds, correct? I'm going to go out on a limb here and you correct me if I'm wrong, but this could be representative of one morning in a small section of Toronto.
On a particular day, yes, it could very well be.
So when we talk about the numbers of like 1.28 billion, it's hard for us as humans to sort of wrap our heads around that. But when you think this is 3,000 birds, we're talking 1.28 billion. I'm getting to the point where my eldest son's getting married. They're talking about having a family. And I want my grandkids to see the same birds I did growing up. That's why we do this. So thank you to everyone here. Yeah, it takes a village.
I'm Mike Schreiner. I'm the MPP for Guelph and the leader of the Ontario Green Party. And I just want to say to Feather Friendly, thank you for hosting today. This is such an important moment to bring us all together. Andrés, Ontario Nature, thank you for the great work that you do. I've been working with Ontario Nature for over 20 years now, well before I got into politics, and like what a difference you make. And Michael, you and your team at FLAP, just fantastic, fantastic work. But most of all, thank you to the volunteers who go out every day and make sure that we show to people our effects on nature and what it means. You know, one of my favorite things every morning, especially in the spring, is to wake up to the music of birds. And we don't hear it as much as we did when I was younger. And Michael, I was thinking of when you were speaking that I got into politics to help solve the climate and environment crisis. But I think we have a deeper crisis, and it's a crisis of caring. And that's what I loved about your words, because you clearly care. And I like to say to people that if we don't care for each other, how are we going to care for nature? And if we don't care for nature, how do we care for each other? And I was asked in an interview just on Friday to respond to the Premier's comments that, well, we're not going to let a few dead grasshoppers get into the way of building Highway 413. And I just thought, somebody who just doesn't care. Like, we should care about the grasshoppers just because we care. But we should also care about the grasshoppers and the birds because they care about us and they protect us. And so the work that FLAP is doing is so critically important. And I want to give Brendan a shout out because he brought all three opposition parties together, sign a letter to the government in support of building standards that do the work that Feather Friendly does and support the work that FLAP does. And so on Monday morning at about 9:15 a.m., I'm going to be debating Bill 98, which is the bill to put the final death knell into green building standards in Ontario. And I'm going to channel all of you when I stand in that house and push back against what the Premier's doing. To think that we've set standards that are now being used around the world and we have a government that's going to take them away and make this worse. Like I can't even comprehend it. And so I just want to thank you for giving me the strength to speak out, to speak up, and to confront that man directly on the harm that he's causing. I want to close Brendan. Brandon has a hawk cam he put up in my office at Queen's Park. The nest for the Queen's Park hawk is literally at my windowsill. I feel like it's so appropriate that the Green Party leader's windowsill has the hawk cam. You can watch it live on my YouTube page, thanks to Brendan. But I purposely put industry people in chairs that force them to look at that hawk when we meet in my office. Because I want the hawk to land during the meeting, and often the hawk does. And I want them to understand what they're doing and why it is so important. Yes, we have to build and, we have to house people and all that, but they need to understand the implications of the decisions they're making and how very simple things like bird-friendly windows can make a huge difference in our lives, the quality of our lives, and obviously nature. So thank you for the work you're doing. Thank you all for being here today.
Thank you, Mike, for your ongoing support. To wrap things up today, I'm going to invite the chair of FLAP's board to say a few closing words. Thank you.
I guess I want to thank those of you that came as guests, because we've heard others speak about the importance of volunteers, but also the guests who came, and it's a new experience for you because, you gave up a Saturday morning, and, before you are the lives of all these beautiful creatures that we've lost on account of how we live our lives. And so if that moves you, I would like to encourage you to continue to be our voice. If you have ideas, if you have relationships, if you have connections of anyone that you think we might find important, first I'd invite you to speak to some of the staff, which obviously Michael is here, Caitlin is here. Where is Susan? She's somewhere in the back over here. Anything you can think of that'll help us, I would encourage you to point to those people and give us your ideas. Secondly, I want to introduce you to our volunteer board. I see John over there raise his hand, and Carly, many of you know. Where's Morrow? Morrow is right here. Where's Barry? Barry's over there. And I want to thank the board for their volunteer and their time and commitment, but also if you have issues that you think we need to deal with, I'd like you to raise those, and I want to introduce those people so you can bother them and you can talk to them and tell them your issues, okay? Because if there's things that we aren't thinking of, we want to know from all of you. So I thank you from the bottom of my heart for coming today, and if you're moved, join our cause however you can, in whatever shape and form you can. We take all kinds of help, whatever you can give. So thank you for coming and taking a moment out of your life for their lives lost, and I guess I'll just say thanks again.